Hello and welcome to Ultraviolet Network's Fortinet Showcase. I'm your host, Matt Sharif. This episode we're going to be talking a little bit about FortiSASE. My apologies for not having done one of these videos in a while. Between summer vacations and kids going back to school, life got a little bit busy and haven't had a lot of time to do videos. I know I'm still working on the Intro to FortiGate series, and we're going to start delving into a little bit more advanced topics with that. But as an aside, I wanted to cover the FortiSASE product, as Secure Access Services Edge or Secure Services Edge is becoming more of a front of mind technology. So in this video we're going to cover what FortiSASE is, and even at a higher level what a Secure Access Services Edge is and should do. What your use cases are for FortiSASE. We'll go through deploying a FortiSASE instance, and then we'll build a test user. I'll talk a little bit more about other options for building users, but just for testing, we'll go ahead and do that. So what is FortiSASE? And even to take a step back, what is a SASE? SASE stands for Secure Access Services Edge. Some in the industry have pivoted to just calling it Secure Services Edge. It's the same idea. The idea here is that we're going to provide a cloud-based firewall as a service, secure web gateway for those who need it, zero trust network access, cloud application security broker, cloud application service broker or security broker, either way, and integration with SD-WAN. Now you might think of some other players within the industry probably have quite a bit of this, but not all of it. Fortinet is one of the first. I'm not saying they're the first, but they're one of the first to really integrate it all. So let's take a minute and talk about how we're doing remote access today, or how we've been doing it for basically a really long time. So remote access as we know it, even as the pandemic started, looked a lot like this. So you have a bunch of users working remotely. They need to get to the workloads over here. And the way to do that is remote access VPN. Now, a lot of organizations will look a lot like this. This is a very simplified version of that, but basically all of your internet traffic, all of your data center bound traffic, all goes through this purple line here, and then the stuff bound for the internet goes out the blue line. And that's all great and well, except for you needed, the increase in users working remote created a strain on the internet connectivity. So a lot of organizations in the last 5 to 10 years have been doing something that looks a little bit like this, where data center bound connections go over the purple line and your internet bound traffic breaks out locally at the end user using split tunneling. And that's great, other than the fact that you didn't really have a lot of control over what they could access. Sure, you could implement an endpoint solution, so for web filtering, or some folks have implemented something like Cisco Umbrella to do DNS filtering. Others have implemented some sort of cloud proxy services, something like Symantec WSS or something along those lines. The problem with all of these, and if they work for you, that's fantastic. If you've integrated them and managed to manage them all centrally from a single console, that's great. You're in the exclusive club. You're in an exclusive club. A lot of folks have not really been able to achieve this. So it looks, you have multiple management consoles and really maybe even multiple agents running on the endpoint machines. And it's confusing for the end users at the end of the day. So what if we could take all of these and bundle them into a single service that our users can use to just connect. Hey, connect to the Secure Services Edge or Secure Access Services Edge, and have our firewalling done for us. Have our identity-based firewalling done for us. Another challenge we've had for a long time in the industry. Yes, many firewall vendors support it. The way they support it hasn't always been the most straightforward. For instance, most support parsing Active Directory logs based on IP address, except for if you're using something like a terminal services agent. There's additional challenges that comes with that, but even so, we've worked around those. But it adds a lot of complexity. What if I just had one agent on a device and it handled all of this for me? Anything going into the data center can be brokered using zero trust. So if, as long as you or your group that you're a member of has permission to said resource, you get access. If not, you're denied access. All your internet bound traffic is also inspected and managed accordingly. To top it off, we're protecting against additional threats, IPS, antivirus. So anything that would look to exploit your device, we can protect against using this cloud service. To take it a step further, let's say you needed to integrate that with your existing SD-WAN deployment. That's really where FortiSASE can start to shine for you. Now, a lot of these capabilities are built on existing technologies. If you're at all familiar with Fortinet, you know these technologies that this is built on. This is not anything that is new or revolutionary from a sense of technology. The technologies have always been there. It's just that Fortinet has found a new way to apply these technologies to the way we operate. Use cases for FortiSASE, secure internet access. A lot of times, folks, the way folks enforce secure internet access today is something like Cisco Umbrella, where it'll filter out DNS requests. And that's great, but it doesn't give the full picture. It just shows what they're querying. You might say Dropbox is allowed, but you don't have a lot of data leak prevention built into something like Dropbox, or Umbrella. It just knows that you're querying for Dropbox. So you putting stuff that shouldn't go up into Dropbox or Google Drive or insert cloud storage provider here, Cisco Umbrella is not going to help you with that. FortiSASE, because it's built on the FortiGate technology, part of it's utilizing the FortiGate technology for the file inspection, as well as they've added a lot more to just the base FortiOS technology. So don't think it's just the FortiGate in the cloud. It uses those tried and true technologies and layers on top of it. So you can inspect for certain file types. You can inspect for certain bad words within a file. And in bad word, I don't mean expletives. I mean content that should not be in a file. You can do that with FortiSASE. Zero trust network access is another use case for us here. Traditionally, the way we've done this is we've tied in identity-based access with Active Directory, or insert your source of identity here, and the device or an agent that is resident on a server would parse login logs, authentication logs, to say, hey, user X is at this IP address. Another way we've done this is using radius accounting, and it's been fairly accurate, but it's not been 100%. Neither of these methods have been 100%. So identity-based access has been something we've been very successful with. However, it's not been 100% accurate. So there are still problems that come with this. With a SASE-based approach, you have an agent that is resident on the device. This agent knows the user ID of the user logged in. So that changes the game for us a little bit. It keeps it pretty darn granular. And then last but not least is the integration. If you currently have a Fortinet Secure SD-WAN deployment, this will integrate your end users with that. So if you're looking to provide secure internet access and get them remote access and not have to think too hard about that, hey, users, if you want to, access the internet, you need to do this, but if you want remote access, you need to do that. No, this is all bundled into the same connection, and the end user doesn't even have to think about it. So as far as going through the deployment portion of this video, some of the assumptions, they're very basic. Number one, you have to have a FortiSASE subscription. This is unfortunately a requirement. If you'd like a trial, reach out to your Fortinet representative and they can arrange that for you. And last but not least, you are the administrator on the FortiSASE instance. So you can't just be an end user, you have to be an administrator. With that being said, let's go ahead and actually take a look at deployment. So to get started with FortiSASE, once you've activated the license and you've waited a requisite amount of time for the instance to actually be spun up, you're going to go to portal.prod.fortisase.com. From there, you're going to go ahead and do a single sign-on login, and I'll see you in a moment once we authenticate. So once you authenticate, you should see a page that looks a lot like this. If you double check your entitlements here, this is telling you what you actually have. So the endpoint protection and cloud sandbox, essentially what this is agent-based licenses, so Forti client-based licenses. The FortiSASE user-based agents is primarily the secure web gateway. If you have a use case where you need to use a different VPN client, or you need to use a VPN client while using FortiSASE, that's where you would use the user-based agents. In this case, I'm not going to deploy that, and I'm not licensed for that, so we're going to go ahead and skip over that. So you have a decision you need to make pretty much prior to deployment. So with FortiSASE, you get 4 POPs, 4 points of presence that you can deploy so that your users are closest to it. So if you're a worldwide organization, maybe you'd choose to have one in the US East, and maybe you choose to have one in the UK because you have a large presence in the UK, and one in Germany, and say one in Singapore or somewhere in Asia, the closest to your users. So make sure you select the sites that make the most sense for your user, for the best user experience. For me, I'm going to do US East 1, I'm going to do Canada Toronto, Canada Ottawa, and US West 1. As far as logging location goes, we're going to go ahead and choose the one that is closest to us or to your IT team. So in this case, for me, it's going to be US East 1. And we're going to apply now. And based on that, we're just going to wait a little bit and let this deploy. I will see you on the other side of this initialization process, and we'll take a quick tour through the FortiSASE environment, and we'll set up our one user. Well, okay, welcome back. As you can see, the initialization has been completed, and we're here at loading FortiSASE. So I'm going to go ahead and click refresh real quick and see if this is hung or if it just needs a little bit more time. And as you can see, it's come up. It's going to pair up with endpoint management. That's the bit that communicates with the client that you're going to download. Now, one thing I didn't cover previously is the agent you download is the same Forti client that we've downloaded in the past. The server or the service that it's going to connect to is very similar to Forti Client Cloud. In fact, the SKU or how this is purchased is Forti Client Cloud FortiSASE edition, I believe, is what the description calls for. However, what you get for that license cost is a completely different suite of technologies. So by logging in, what you can see here immediately is a dashboard that looks pretty familiar. If you've ever used FortiOS, this looks pretty darn familiar. Some things are a little different because we don't necessarily have the serial number, model, firmware, version, etc. The version is down here. This is more on a rolling release schedule, or I'm sorry, it's more of a there's a constant release schedule, and you are notified prior to updates taking place. The big thing here is probably going to need to know, what the health is of all of the POPs. So if you're feeling any impacts, maybe, if there are any issues with the POPs, you are, you're aware of those. Managed endpoints, we don't have any managed endpoints because we just deployed it. If you have 40 extenders that you want to use for thin edge, for protected internet access, firewall as a service, you can definitely use that, as well as any kind of user connection. So I'm going to change the theme to the dark theme. Find it's a little easier on the eyes. Much of what you'll see here is, again, made to make sense, made to really bring together a number of the technologies, and you'll probably be able to figure out that there's some sort of EMS running in the background, there's some sort of FortiOS running in the background, and there's a bunch of other stuff that's been built atop those foundations. So we're going to be displaying as much of that data as possible here for you. Network configuration, there's really not a lot to configure network-wise because this is handled for you by the orchestration within FortiSASE. If you had assets connecting to FortiSASE, you could see how they're distributed and what POPs they're connecting to. Right now we don't have anything connected, so this is not currently something that is going to load for us because we don't have any data. Thin edge, this is where you can start to bring in 40 extenders. And under policies, as you can see, the default is an allow all. So if you just wanted to just allow all users, you would at a minimum have some protection from botnet command and control servers. So this policy by default denies anything that's botnet command and control that is identified per FortiGuard Labs. So FortiGuard Labs has the threat feed that's feeding in here, and it doesn't really matter where we're sourcing from. If the destination is any of those botnet command and control servers, we're going to go ahead and deny it. So let's say this was good enough for you. For right now, this was good enough for you, but you really wanted to add maybe some inline antivirus, some SSL inspection, even if it's just certificate inspection, and some IPS and application control. How would we do that? We're going to go under security. I'm going to create a new profile group. I don't like messing with the defaults. So the profile group, we shall call it Ultraviolet profile. Okay. Click OK. We shall click on that. And for right now, we're going to customize the web filter profile. And I'll even take it a step further. Similar to FortiOS, we're just going to monitor anything that is... We'll accept the defaults on this. Anything that is adult and mature content will warn on this. Bandwidth consuming, we're going to go ahead and change those to monitor. Security risk will block. We'll go ahead and leave those alone for now. So this is good enough for web filtering. We can always revisit this later. DNS filter, we'll leave that alone. Right now, the IPS, so we'll customize this a little bit. So we can take a look. As it stands right now, it will go ahead and if the recommended action is to block, like for criticals, most folks like to block highs and criticals, so we're just going to go ahead and start with that. We can customize this a little further later if we'd like. So we're going to go ahead and leave that there. Antivirus, we're going to go ahead and leave. There's not really a lot to do unless you wanted to use your own sandbox, which, this comes with a cloud sandbox, so don't see why you would want to change that. Application control, we're going to leave disabled for now. And SSL inspection, we're going to go ahead and leave that currently to certificate-based inspection. So with that, we can go down here to our policy, and we'll edit and change the profile group to Ultraviolet profile. Great, now we've added a little bit of security. Let's see if we can add new columns here. It doesn't show the profile that's set there. Actually, no, it does right there. So that's a good deal. So, all right, so how do I start onboarding users? So as far as users and authentication goes, you have a few options. You'll use LDAP Radius and SSO, essentially SAML, or local users. So LDAP and Radius you would need to expose out in the open. You would need to find out the source IP of your FortiSASE instances, or the POPs, and you would need to work with the Fortinet Technical Assistance Center to determine that. So you can give a call to TAC to find out what those are and allow those in. For me, I'm still not a big buff of that, even though we're limiting based on source IP. So I would recommend either you use some sort of SAML, Azure AD, Okta, etc., or local users. Creating a local user account is very easy. All you gotta do is go here, create a local user, and put their email address in, and give them the invitation code there. And we can even set their password for them if you'd like, or they can set it for them. And that would be that. They would get an invitation to go ahead and set up their Forti client and input the invitation code. Timeout. I've got 500 users. I've got 100 users. I've got 50 users. I don't want to do this 50 times for 50 different people. Can I send out a pre-configured installer that already has it associated with my SASE instance? The answer is yes, you can. What you need to do for that is you need to give TAC a call, have them provide you with a pre-configured installer that already includes this invitation code, and you'll be on your way. I've tried this. I've tried embedding it myself. It failed horribly, so give TAC a call and they'll really sort you out really quick. Alright, last but not least is the VPN SSO. We've got some FortiSASE with Azure, FortiSASE with Okta documentation, so if you'd like to go through that, you can. This is very, very similar to doing FortiSASE with, FortiGate SSL VPN with Okta or Azure AD. So there shouldn't be a lot to do here. In fact, they made it a lot easier on you because all you have to do is grab all this stuff and then put it into your requisite provider. So if it's Okta or Azure AD, and so it's just a bunch of copy paste as opposed to having to type things out in the CLI, where, as you know, that's where things tend to bite us the most. We're missing a slash where we did HTTP versus HTTPS, and it's a big old headache. Next, you would provide the information that Okta or whatever gave you, and you would pass that information on. The IDP certificate, you would definitely need to upload that here, and you would be on your way. So just to recap, we went ahead and covered what FortiSASE is. It's Fortinet's entry into the Secure Access Services Edge solutions. The use cases of just secure web access, secure web gateway, zero trust network access, and SD-WAN integration. We discussed those. Went through the FortiSASE deployment and went through building a test user. Really like to thank you for watching and taking the time to spend with me in this video as we went through FortiSASE at a very high level. There will be more videos coming in the future as to how we can use FortiSASE to secure our environment. I'd really like to thank you for watching, and I hope this has been informative for you.